Adam here from the Digital Go-To Showroom, and here I have the Sony RX10 Mark IV in my hand. We're going to do an FAQ just after this. So if you've been following our channel, we do frequently asked question videos. We take a particular camera and we look for the most frequently asked questions in our customer service, and we also scour the internet. I have 10 of the most frequently asked questions on the Sony RX10 Mark IV. We're going to start with number 1. So the first question that we got on the Sony RX10 Mark IV is, does it feature a leaf shutter? Well, Sony doesn't specify what type of shutter is used. They only say whether it's a mechanical or electronic shutter. I'm going to go with the fact that it has a leaf shutter. Typically you'll find in cameras that are all-in-one or all-in-one ultra zoom cameras like the RX10 series camera, that it has a leaf shutter, and typically the shutters are found inside the lens just behind the iris. Question number 2 is, what is the maximum flash sync speed? Well, since I've answered in question number 1 that it has a leaf shutter, your maximum flash sync speed with the RX10 is going to be 1/2000th of a second. That is an amazing feature to have, especially for people shooting outdoors in bright light. Now, the camera features an electronic shutter. If you have the electronic shutter set, your maximum flash sync speed is going to drop down to 1/100th of a second. So just take that into mind when shooting with the electronic shutter feature of the camera. So let's take a look at shooting with the electronic shutter and shooting with the built-in flash. So as I mentioned, you got to keep an eye on the electronic shutter. If you're going to want to shoot in high shutter speeds, in the electronic shutter you're going to be limited to 1/100th of a second. And let me show you, if we see over here, we're at 1250th of a second, and if we hit the menu, we're going to access the shutter type, and right now we're set to electronic shutter. So I can go to 1/2000th of a second, which on the mechanical shutter is the top shutter speed. But as soon as I pop the flash up, you'll see that the camera changes the shutter speed to 1/100th of a second. So you got to make sure, if you want to use the high shutter speeds, you got to make sure to select mechanical shutter in the shutter type inside the camera's menu. So question number 3 on the RX10 Mark IV is, can you manually switch from electronic to mechanical shutter, or does the camera do it automatically? Well, there are 3 different options that you have. You can set the camera to shoot with the mechanical shutter only, or you can set it to electronic shutter, or you can have the camera automatically switch between electronic and mechanical. And that's all found within the menu. Let's take a look at how to switch between the mechanical and electronic shutter. You're going to go into the second camera option, and you're going to go to the 5th subfolder, and you're going to select shutter type. Now, in shutter type, you're going to have the option between auto, which the camera chooses between electronic shutter and mechanical shutter, or you can use solely the mechanical shutter, or you can choose the electronic shutter. And when you make your decision, you're going to hit the select option right here in the middle, and that's going to select your option. So all you shooters that are looking to shoot high frame rate, the RX10 Mark IV is an amazing camera. It's capable of shooting up to 960 frames per second. And the question here is number 4. How do you set the high frame rate on the RX10 Mark IV to shoot 960 frames per second? Come on, let's take a look at how to do that. To access the high frame rate of the camera, what you're going to want to do is on the mode dial, first switch to HFR. Once you switch to HFR, you'll see it on the corner over here that it says HFR, and then you're going to access the menu. So to choose 960 frames per second, once you hit the menu, you're going to look at menu tab number 2 and folder 1, and you're going to select HFR settings, which is high frame rate. Once you select that, you're going to go over to the frame rate, and you have the option of 240 frames per second, 480 or 960 frames per second. Hit select it's going to give you the notification that you're on 960 frames per second right over here. You can hit any button to return back to the main screen, and you'll see up top here that you're going to shoot 960 frames per second in the high frame rate, and it's going to automatically slow it down for you in camera. And now you're ready to shoot high frame rate on your RX10 Mark IV. So our next frequently asked question is, can the RX10 Mark IV be powered by an external power source while in use? And yes, it can. That's a great feature, especially since a lot of these cameras using the MP-FW50, you don't get as many shots as you do on other types of cameras. So having the ability to plug a battery source into it while in use is a benefit. So I have a 16,000 milliamp battery that I plug into it. What you want to make sure is to turn off the control for the smartphone. And when you plug the USB cord into the camera should recognize it automatically. You shouldn't need to change the type of mode the USB is in. So if it's on mass transfer protocol or mass storage, you can leave it in auto and the camera will automatically detect. But you do have to make sure that when you're connecting one of these external batteries that it has a high milliamp hour. So I had a 16,000 milliamp battery and it worked just fine, but something with a lower milliamp hour, maybe 2,000, I'm not sure if that's going to work very well for this type of camera. But yes, you can power the camera with an external battery source while the camera is in use. Question number 6 is, what are the best settings for low light sports photography? Well, if you're just starting out, what I would recommend is go to the scene mode, set for sports photography. Now that's going to set the camera to shoot in the continuous high mode. The ISO is going to be auto, so it's going to determine what ISO to choose according to the amount of light that's available to you. And it's going to also prioritize the shutter speed to be a fast enough shutter speed to freeze action. Now, another more customizable mode would be to set the camera to shutter priority. That's where you're going to determine what shutter speed you need to freeze the action, and the camera is going to determine your aperture value. Also, you can shoot in ISO auto so that the camera determines according to your shutter speed aperture combination which ISO is appropriate. If you're a little bit more advanced in shooting, I would recommend shooting in the shutter priority mode. Set your continuous frame rate to high, set your shutter speed to a minimum of at least 500th of a second, and choose an ISO that you're comfortable with. Now, if you're someone that wants to shoot RAW, remember that your continuous shooting is going to be limited, so the camera's going to buffer. But if you want to be able to shoot the maximum amount of frames, I would shoot in the JPEG mode. And remember, you're shooting with a 1-inch sensor, so you want to go through some of the ISOs to make sure you get an ISO that you're comfortable shooting with. This does have the capability of going up to 12,800 ISO, but again, I would recommend going through the ISOs and choosing one that's appropriate for the situation that's going to maximize image quality for the shoot. So what are some of the different focusing modes of the RX10 Mark IV? Well, if you look on the front of the camera, you'll notice that there is a focusing switch that gives you the ability to change from single frame autofocus, which is a mode that will lock the autofocus when the camera determines that the subject has stopped moving. It will also give you a focus confirmation beep, which I believe you can turn that off if you don't want anybody to hear that the camera has acquired focus. Then you have A, which is something where the camera will determine whether or not to use single or continuous. So the camera will decide that for you. If you go down to the next one, which is C, that's going to be continuous AF. So this, if you're photographing anything in action, anything in movement, you'd want to switch the camera's mode to this feature C, which is continuous. And this will allow the camera to focus continuously when the shutter is halfway pressed down. Now the camera also does have pre-AF, which is a mode which will allow the camera to continuously autofocus even when the button's not halfway depressed. I like to have that feature turned off just to save some battery power, but if you want the camera to automatically adjust the focus for you, even when not pushing the button, make sure to have that feature turned on in the menu. Now, if you go past that, you're going to see what's called DMF. That's going to allow you to utilize the autofocus feature, but also be able to do a manual focus adjustment. So that's good for macro shooters if you need to acquire the focus fast and then make some incremental changes using the focus ring. And then you have complete manual focus. And when you're in manual focus, there's lots of different assist features that the camera offers, like peaking and focus magnification, for example. But one of my favorite autofocus modes, since I like taking portraits, is going to be the IAF feature. Now, by default, to access that, you're going to just push the button on the back of the camera, and that's going to be the button that's in the middle of the control wheel. That's going to activate your IAF. So if you're going to push that button, you want to make sure that, one, your subject is in focus, because if the face is out of focus, the IAF won't activate. Also, if your subject matter is moving too fast, IAF is going to have trouble acquiring focus on the person's eye. Also, it won't work in the video mode or when the mode dial is set for movie or HFR, the high frame rate. But this is a great feature because it allows you to frame your subject matter and not have to move the camera to focus on the eye. It will automatically detect either the left or the right eye. So take a look at this feature. Again, I believe this feature is found on only the Sonys, but there might be other cameras out there that have IAF. But again, for portrait shooters, this is really a lifesaver in a lot of situations. So as you can see, we have the center area as the AF selection area, the focus area. You can see the crosshairs right here. So if you push the shutter release down, that's where where you're going to acquire focus, right? But I want to make sure that his eye is sharp, and that's where hitting this button right here is going to activate the IAF, and that's the mode dial. By default, it's set to here. I'll show you in just a moment how to change that, but we're going to push it, and as you see, the camera is automatically able to detect his eye, and as he moves his head, it's still able to detect, but what you're going to want to do is make sure that the subject matter is not moving that fast, because that's where the IAF can have some trouble. But if he does move, if your subject does move, what you also want to make sure that your camera is set to continuous, and then it will continually track your AF. So in AFC, as you can see right here, if I push the AF tracking, as he moves his head, the eye tracking should move as well. But again, for faster moving subject matter, the camera might be full. Now, to set up different buttons to move where you want your eye tracking, what you're going to do is you're going to go into your menu. You're going to go all the way over to the second menu function, and you're going to go where it says Custom Key Shoot. And in that mode, as you can see right here, center button is set for IAF, but that could be changed. So what you're going to do is if you change it to focus hold, then what you can do over here is you can go to Custom Button 1, and you got to scroll through the menu option until you find IAF. You're going to hit IAF, and now Custom Button 1 on the camera is going to be set to IAF, and you can do that with some of the other buttons. You won't be able to program the left button as the IAF, but any of these center button, C1, C2, all the way to even the focus hold button, and as you can see, I actually have that set for IAF as well. For me, it's a little bit easier that way. I have when I'm doing a portrait, I'm using the electronic viewfinder. I can have my finger on the shutter release and my thumb hitting the button on the side of the camera. And that's some of the different focusing modes, and that's how you activate the IAF on the RX10 Mark IV. So does the RX10 Mark IV have a built-in ND filter? Quick answer on this one, no it does not. So on the RX10 Mark III, Sony gave you the ability to access the Play Memories mobile on the camera. So you can download different apps, and one of the apps that they had available was an ND filter. Unfortunately, on the RX10 Mark IV, they're considering this a more professional camera, and therefore they removed the Sony Play Memories mobile app. But this does have a 72mm filter thread that you can attach any type of ND filter that has a 72mm thread. So whether or not you want to go with a variable ND filter or a single ND filter, that's what you're going to have to do when working with the RX10 Mark IV. So the next question is, how do you access the clear image zoom on the Sony RX10 Mark IV? Well, you already have a 600mm zoom that you're able to change using the zoom ring. Now to extend it, Sony gives you the ability using clear image zoom. To access that, let's take a look at the menu to see which menu option it is to adjust it. Now, clear image zoom gives you the ability to extend the reach of the lens about 2 times, and Sony claims without losing image quality. So to access the camera's clear image zoom, what you're going to want to do is first hit the menu button. Once you access the menu, it's going to go to the second tab. You're going to look at the 6th folder, 6 of 10. And so that's where you'll see ring, zoom settings, zoom speed. You're going to go to zoom settings, and you'll notice that you have optical zoom only, clear image zoom, digital zoom. So to turn on the clear image zoom, you're going to highlight where it says clear image zoom and select it. You'll notice the confirmation right over here. Now, when you go back to the your main screen, where you can zoom in and out with the zoom rocker or the zoom ring, when you're going to go take a photo, you can bring it all the way out to where it's 600mm. And then to the right, you'll see where it has the magnifying glass, and it will allow you to go up to 2 times. So that's going to give you about a 1200mm equivalent without degradation in quality. That's an amazing feature to have, especially when you need some extra reach. And that's how you access the clear image zoom on the RX10 Mark IV. So the last question is a more advanced question for some of you video shooters out there. So if you're thinking about the RX10 Mark IV and you've heard a lot of buzz about S-Log2 and S-Log3, those are gamma profiles for the camera that shoots a very flat file to allow you to grade and get and pull more dynamic range from the file in post. Now, what's very difficult is when shooting in S-Log2 or S-Log3 is getting your exposure or seeing what the final result would look like. So if you're shooting in S-Log2 or S-Log3 and you have a creative director that's sitting next to you that doesn't want to see the very flat profile, you can access in the RX10 what's called a gamma assist profile. And what that would do is allow you to record in either S-Log2 or S-Log3, but when you're viewing it on the screen, you're going to see what the intended image could look like in what's called the Rec 709 preview. When shooting on the log format on the Sony RX10, you'll notice a very flat picture profile. So over here you can see the picture profile is set for PP8, which is S-Log3. We have the camera set for the gamma at S-Log3. The color mode is sgamut3.cine. Now, if you're looking on the screen, it's very flat, but Sony offers the ability to do a gamma display assist. And let's take a look at how to get into the menu and change that so you see a preview of what the image would look like if it was graded. So we're going to go to Menu, and we're going to go to the Setup One menu, and you're going to go to Camera Display Assist. And since we're set for S-Log3, we're going to go to where it says Gamma Display Assist and go all the way to S-Log3 to RX709. And there we go. So what you're seeing here is, and it's being recorded so it's not going to look exactly what you see on the camera, but what you're seeing here is an assist feature and not what's going to be recorded to the card. What's going to be recorded to the card is the image recorded in the S-Log3 mode. Again, it's going to be a very flat image. The display assist is perfect for viewing purposes, especially if you have a client that wants to see what the image will look like and not look at a flat image. So I hope this video or this FAQ helped you out and answered all your questions regarding the Sony RX10 Mark IV. If it did, hit that like button underneath, and remember, subscribe to our channel for more incredible videos like this. I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you for joining us.